Hello, dear friends of True Health Tuesday. This is Maria Jose Hummel, and welcome back to True Health Tuesdays. I do have to tell you, though, that today's presentation has been pre recorded. I'm kind of sad about that because I actually love doing the live streams, as you probably noticed, that I do enjoy interacting with you guys. And I'm kind of sad that I won't be able to do that for a little bit. So I'll tell you why. I think I announced it. I remember announcing this. You might remember that I announced that I am doing this second doctorate degree at Loma Linda University. And it turns out that one of my classes is also on Tuesdays, exact same time as True Health Tuesdays, every single Tuesday. So from here until December, so this quarter, I will be doing these classes exact same time. So I feel kind of sad that I won't be able to do the live streams for a little bit. Bummer, because I really like interacting with you guys. I really like that dialogue that sometimes we were able to have. And anyway, so I did record this. By the time you watch it, it'll be Tuesday. I recorded this on Monday. But I promised I would be doing this presentation on nutrition in the brain. So I did it for you guys. And I figured out I would do it in two parts because this is a very important subject. So today, actually, this presentation doesn't say part one, but it is nutrition in the brain part one. So share with your friends, share this link with your friends, because today we will be talking about neurodegenerative diseases. What does that mean? It means Parkinson's disease, but more importantly, even because it's more common, Alzheimer's disease. It is a disease that's actually increasing, and more and more. Like there's more and more people that are unfortunately are getting this disease, and it is preventable. And we're having more and more information about how to prevent it, and now we're finding more information about its relationship with our lifestyle. So share the link so that more people can find out, and not only about how to prevent it, but as you will find out in this presentation, even in the early stages of after being diagnosed, how to slow down the progression of this disease. Alzheimer's disease is among the top 10 killers in this country, the United States, and probably many other developed countries. So let your friends know. And even after this presentation has ended, the live stream, it will be in the channel, the Living Manna Online Church channel, Power of the Land channel. So you can also share those recordings afterwards. So let's start with prayer, okay? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity you give us to share this very important information. And we ask you to please bless this presentation, and that all this information may be a blessing to everyone who connects tonight and everyone who sees this presentation later. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So nutrition in the brain, part one. Next time, by the way, I will announce this already. I'll let you know that in 2 weeks from today, the part two of this nutrition in the brain presentation will be about mood disorders. So that will include depression and anxiety. And it will obviously be about nutrition and its relationship with those things. So make sure you put it in your calendar if you want to know more about that. Okay, but today's presentation, we'll talk about the neurodegenerative disorders, but I just want to start off talking about what a wonderful, wonderful, amazingly complex the brain is, right? The brain is one of the most amazing organs in the human body, honestly. I've had the opportunity to actually hold the human brain in my hands. It's really dense. It's really heavy for its size. And it's just so complex. Look at this. I mean, this is obviously estimate, right? We haven't really counted them one by one, but 100 billion neurons, we think, and each neuron is connected to other neurons with many connections, and that's how the brain functions. Each neurons is connected with other neurons, and then there's impulses that go from neuron to neuron, and neurotransmitters that are transmitted or that are shared like that. And so we think that there are about 100 trillion neuron connections. Wow. So the human brain is probably the most complex structure maybe in the whole universe, you guys. Wow, the human mind, what an amazing thing. What an amazing thing. I don't think there's a computer anywhere ever that is more complex. Well, of course, now we're starting to mess around with that. Right now, we're creating this artificial intelligence, and that's probably not a good thing to do. All right, so with all this complexity, no wonder then that things might go wrong, right? Things might be altered in a negative way if we do not take proper care. So how important it is to take proper care of our brains. It is very important to take proper care of our brains. And so nutrition is how we fuel the brain, of course. And we'll see what can happen if we don't fuel the brain properly. So as I said, today we will be talking about the neurological disorders, and part 2 will be about mood disorders. And that will be, as I said, it would be depression and anxiety. So today, the neurological disorders that I will cover will be just Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's. There's obviously many more neurological disorders that we can talk about, but it's just no time to cover. And honestly, I am a nutritionist. I'm not a neurologist, so this is not my field. But from what I have investigated, there is a connection between some neurological disorders and nutrition. And it's very, very fascinating what research has indeed found about this. So I'll show you a few studies about this. And I am very glad that there's some researchers actually in Loma Linda University that have found amazing connections between nutrition and some neurological disorders. So let me start off by talking about Parkinson's disease. And you'll be maybe very surprised to find out this connection that you can see right here on the screen. So there's this meta-analysis that you see right here, okay? And this one talks about Parkinson's disease, as you can see, and its connection with dairy foods, okay? Dairy foods. Particularly, as you can see right here, so you see right here up in the corner, the abstract, at the end of the abstract, there's highlighted right here, talks about dairy foods, milk and cheese in particular, and how the consumption of these foods might be positively associated with an increased risk for PD, means Parkinson's disease, especially in men. Now, I want to tell you that there is a couple, as I mentioned, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with this couple from Loma Linda. If you're not following them on social media, I suggest you start following them. This couple of doctors from Loma Linda, their names are Dean and Aisha Sherzai. They're just this power couple. They're both neurologists, and they're researchers, are just amazing speakers, presenters, they're authors, and they're all over the place. So if you're not following them, I would highly suggest you follow them. They're just really, really dynamic speakers. And so They are saying in one of their presentations, they said that the dairy products possibly are associated with higher risk for Parkinson's disease on a dose response relationship. And they reported that for every 200 grams of intake of milk a day, the risk for Parkinson's disease goes up by 17%, and 13% increment for each 10 grams of intake of cheese. 10 grams. 10 grams of cheese is like a third of an ounce. A third of an ounce. It's so small, right? An ounce of cheese, right? Like it's a small amount. 10 grams is a third of an ounce, all right? So that's not even a lot. It's a very small amount. So 10 grams a day of cheese increases the risk for Parkinson's disease by 13%. And people eat, I think, a lot more than that. Most people, I would think. I don't know. But that's what the studies found. So in another study, investigators found information about a daily intake of milk of men, all right? And they studied 449 men between the ages of 45 and 68 years old. But this study was after they had died. So it was an autopsy study. And they studied the brain of these men after they had died. And they discovered that men who had consumed 2 glasses of milk, more than 2 glasses of milk per day, had a reduction of 41.5% in the neuronal density of the part of the brain called substantia nigra, which is a part of the brain that's responsible for movement and for reward. So this is part of the brain that makes dopamine. And dopamine is very, very much related to Parkinson's disease. So, in other words, drinking milk reduced the brain, that part of the brain anyway. And that's possibly why it is associated with Parkinson's disease. Now, some of the reasons why, this is, of course, the theory of why this is potentially why this is happening, is that dairy products, the way they're produced today anyway, as you know, food production is industrialized.
Okay. I found this on the web.
Sorry. Siri is talking to me. Be quiet, Siri. Sorry about that. Siri started talking to me for no reason. All right. So dairy products contain, as you know, because of the way they are industrially produced, pesticides. And these pesticides are neurotoxic. So these pesticides, as you can see on the screen right now, are polychlorinated biphenyls. And so post-mortem studies, again, these autopsy studies, show that brains of Parkinson's disease patients contain higher levels of these chemicals, you guys, than normal control, meaning men who did not have Parkinson's disease. Okay, or I don't think it says men, it says that people, just patients without Parkinson's disease, compared with the patients with Parkinson's disease. The people with Parkinson's disease had higher levels of these neurotoxic pesticides. Unfortunately, most people who consume dairy products will be consuming products that are industrially produced, unless you have your own cow. Do you have your own cow in your backyard? Are you milking your own cow? Or, maybe you're getting organic. But you have to be careful, because even organic products are still using organic pesticides. Do you know what organic products are being used in your dairy? You know what I mean? So do we really know? We don't necessarily know, right? Okay, so that's one theory. The other theory is that the saturated fat content of dairy, as you know, because I've talked about this before. Do you remember when we talked about diabetes? Do you remember? If you haven't seen the 4-part series we did on diabetes, they're recorded. They're in the channel. Go watch it. Okay, when we talked about diabetes, we talked about fat, particularly saturated fat. Are you looking at the slide? It says right there, saturated fat content of dairy has been associated with insulin resistance. This is exactly what we talked about in our 4-part series. I hope you remember. If you don't, you can go back and watch it. If you haven't watched it, you can go back and watch it. But that's what we talked about, and we really went deep into that. It's very important to understand that insulin resistance is not about eating too many carbs. So if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend watching that. All right. So it talks about saturated fat and insulin resistance. And now here's a new piece of information for you, that insulin resistance has been strongly linked to the risk of Parkinson's disease. We had talked about that before. We had talked about insulin resistance and its link to Alzheimer's disease, remember? And that's what we're going to talk about later too. But now we see that it's also linked to Parkinson's. How important it is to take proper care of our brain. My goodness. Oh, wow. Okay, so there's that. Third theory is that there's also evidence. See, maybe this is a multifactorial thing because nothing is just black and white. So maybe it's all of the above, and very likely it's all of the above. There is also evidence of an inflammatory response and increased intestinal permeability, aka leaky gut. Have you heard of that? Yes? I hope you have. Important concept to know. Leaky gut. If you haven't, look it up. Leaky gut, otherwise known as increased intestinal permeability, inflammatory response. Look at what it says. This leads to reduced absorption of nutrients and minerals that are important for you, such as zinc and selenium. And this decreased absorption of these nutrients has been associated with increased risk of Parkinson's disease. All right. So there's many different things here that we have just mentioned. And these are speculations of what these, how the mechanism of higher consumption of dairy can lead to Parkinson's disease. I personally think that all of the above, are possibly connected, because it's very rare that you find one thing that causes one disease, especially when it comes to chronic diseases. It's many factors that are involved. So it's probably all of them. All right. So when it comes to Parkinson's disease, it's probably all of them. So I would say for the prevention of Parkinson's disease, the best thing is consuming a plant-based diet, obviously, because that is, as you probably have realized, if you have watched many of the presentations that I've done, that is probably the one thing that I always repeat, because I am a believer of Genesis 1:29. Oh, I forgot, now that I'm thinking about, I forgot to give you my disclaimer. I forgot to put the slides there, but I always say my disclaimer is, I am a strong believer to the law and the testimony, Isaiah 8:20. Do you all know that verse by heart? Because it should be the rule. everybody should follow, especially in these days, you guys. Of there's just so many winds of deception out there, and if we are not very well centered in the Bible and the spirit of prophecy, how are we going to be able to discern truth from error? And when it comes to health, it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. There's a lot of misinformation out there. How are we going to know what is true and what is error? And if, unfortunately, this could be a matter of, well, life and death, honestly. People are being misled into following the wrong kinds of diets. I see it all the time, unfortunately, even in our church. And yet we have the Bible. First page, the very first page. In most Bibles is the first page. Unless your Bible maybe is large print, okay, it might fall into the second page. But in most Bibles, it's the first page. The original diet, God's instruction for human beings. The original diet, the original design for human beings is a plant-based diet. Humans were not made to eat anything else but plants. Now, they were given permission to eat animal foods after the flood because there was nothing else. It was an emergency. It was an emergency measure. But if you see the Bible narrative, you can immediately tell that after humans started eating animal products, what happened to life expectancy? What happened? Immediately went down. So you can tell that just by adding animal products, longevity went down dramatically. Dramatically. So animal products are meant for survival, not for longevity. So if you have nothing else to eat, okay, then you might need to eat animal products. But if you want to be healthy and live long, disease-free, or as much as possible without disease, then that's not what you want to do. So it's up to you. It's really up to you. So anyway, so that's Parkinson's disease. I would recommend diet-wise to the law and the testimony. What is the diet that God wanted men to eat originally? Genesis 1:29. And you can also see other parts of the Bible. Go to Daniel chapter 1. In 10 days, in only 10 days, you could see the difference between those who ate plants and those who did not. I see it in my work all the time. Also in 10 days, because as I have told you, at my work, we do 10-day dietary immersion programs, nutrition intervention programs for 10 days. I just finished our last round. We just finished on Sunday, and we saw people amazing results. I always see amazing results. What can I say? In 10 days, because it's God's program, 10 days. So you can try it. By the way, I have it in my website. As I always said, I will show you my website at the end again so that you can download it. If you haven't yet, if this is your first time watching, I will give you my website at the end of this presentation so that you can download a menu with recipes for 10 days and try a whole food plant-based diet as well. And you can change your life. All right, so that was Parkinson's disease. I went off a little bit, but let's come back. And now we're going to talk about Alzheimer's, okay? So Alzheimer's is an even more common disease in the United States and other developing and developed countries in the world. And in the United States is among the top 10 killers. And the same couple that I told you about, Dr. Dean and Aisha Sherzai, have actually written a book about Alzheimer's disease. In that book, they have a graphic that shows, interestingly, the risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. And I like this graphic because it's a circle that has in the outside these risk factors that are lifestyle habits. And then these lifestyle habits lead to these conditions that can affect the brain. So there's in the outside rim, you see the habits that can affect the conditions that then affect the brain. These major conditions are these big arrows that you see, the 4 big arrows, all right? So you see from the very top, do you see the very, very top? Poor diet. Let me see if I can place myself better over here. Okay. No, that's not good. Here I am trying to do this myself, right? All right, let's see. All right, okay. You see over here, okay? Top. Poor diet. You see that? Poor diet. High sugar. Oh my goodness. High sugar and high saturated fat. Those are the 2 worst things you can do for your diet. Too much sugar and too much of the worst fat. Well, the 2 worst fats are these 2, okay? Saturated and trans fats. But trans fats have been banned from the food supply. So unless you are buying trans fats for yourself, how do you buy trans fats? You buy margarine or you buy vegetable shortening. So if you're buying those things, you're buying trans fats. The only other way to buy trans fats is if you're buying products that would still say hydrogenated oils. And they're tricky, these manufacturers that are hiding some trans fats. If they say hydrogenated oils, they might have trans fats. They just hide them a little bit. If the product has less than 0.5 grams, they can legally say they have 0 grams. So they lower the amount to less than 0.5 grams per serving. So they lower the serving size enough or whatever. They do these little tricks so that they are able to put a 0, So make sure you read the ingredient list. So try to stay away from those trans fats. Those are really bad. They're probably worse than even saturated fat. But saturated fats are really bad too. Where are the saturated fats found? Those are your fats that are solid at room temperature, just like trans fats are usually solid at room temperature. Stay away from any fats that are solid at room temperature because those are going to harden. All right, they're going to harden in your vessels as well. Try to stay away from those. All right. So sugar and fat. So people sometimes say, wait, which one's either sugar or either fat are bad? It's like this dichotomy. Like there's the people who are in the sugar camp and people who are in the fat camp. There's this separation. No. They're both bad. It's not, you don't have to pick. They're both bad. Sugar and fat, saturated fat. There's good fats, by the way. And those are the fats that God put in nature, in trees like avocados, nuts. Those are the good fats. They usually, no, always, not usually, always have fiber. Good fats have fiber. Just remember that. All right. So poor diet is one with high sugar and high saturated fat. All right. So that's risk number 1. Risk number 2, next to the right, obesity. Risk number 3, alcohol, smoking, sedentary behavior. We're going down, okay? So those are habits. There's a few things that are maybe out of your control, like head trauma, okay? That could be an accident. That could definitely be outside of your control, okay? Small vessel disease, that can probably be associated with something like diabetes. Poor sleep, okay, that's definitely, I think, probably within your control. very likely, unless you have a job that, maybe maybe you have a night shift, but you can still try to get good sleep even if you have a night shift. All right. High blood pressure. That's something that could possibly be controlled with lifestyle. Stress. That's a hard one, okay? That's a hard one. Sometimes it's within our control. Sometimes there's things that are outside of our control. But I have to say, there's stress management things that we can do. And the best thing, I think, is to leave things to God. Trust in God. That is the eighth principle of health. If you know all the New Start principles, as they call them, or 8 laws of health, the last one is, well, the last one is the most important one, but it's the last one as they are quoted in the Ministry of Healing, the book, right? In that quote, it's the last one in the list, but it's the most important one in my view. Trust in God for stress management. Just leave it up to God. All right. Anyway, high cholesterol, right here, high cholesterol. I think that is definitely within your control, because in my 10-day program, I have to tell you, parenthesis right here, in my 10-day program that we do whole food, plant-based diet, no oil, no processed food, no sugar, that is the one biometric that goes down the fastest. LDL cholesterol and total cholesterol go down the fastest with a whole food, plant-based diet, no oil. Are you like, what do you mean no oil? Do I have to do no oil? You can do whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just telling you that when you put out the oil outside, of your diet, your LDL cholesterol is going to go down. Boom. Why? Because oil is also a processed food concentrated in calories. It's the highest in calorie density and has no fiber. So in today's world where we eat a hypercaloric diet and we're hyper sedentary, if you do that, your cholesterol is going to go down, boom, really quickly. I see it all the time. I do this for a living. So I'm just telling you, if that's what you want to do, if you want your cholesterol to go down, even if you have familial hypercholesterolemia, meaning this is not a very high percentage of people. Most people say, oh, but it's my genetics. Most people, it's not their genetics, but a few percentage of people, it might be. But even those people can benefit from a dietary change. All right? I've seen it with my own eyes. Nobody has to tell me. All right. And last one is diabetes. It's one of the most important ones, but it's the last one that I'm mentioning. Okay. All of these are risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. It's incredible, because all of these things, you wouldn't even think about Alzheimer's disease connected with diabetes, cholesterol, stress, high blood pressure, and all these other sedentary behaviors, smoking, alcohol, obesity, diet. What does that have to do with Alzheimer's? It does. It's from the book. And all of these things, what do? They cause oxidation, inflammation, lipid dysregulation down here. That your lipids, that means your cholesterol, different kinds of cholesterol, your LDL cholesterol, your non-HDL cholesterol. There's one that's called ApoB, which is it's even better than LDL cholesterol, but not a lot of people are really getting it measured. So just worry about your total cholesterol, your LDL cholesterol. If you can get your non-HDL cholesterol, those are your lipids. And another one that's very important is your triglycerides. So those are your lipids. If those are too high, that's what they're talking about here with lipid dysregulation. That's what it means. And the other one over there is glucose. What's glucose? What's glucose? Sugar. That's what it means. Sugar dysregulation. So when you go to the doctor and they do fasting, blood sugar, or they do, better still, your A1C, your hemoglobin A1C, meaning the average for 3 months, and it's too high. glucose dysregulation. So you might have either diabetes, pre-diabetes, or insulin resistance, one of those things. All of those things affect the brain. Yes. 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 Could you believe it? Yes. So here's another list. Maybe it's easier to see this way, but let me change it up for you so you can see it better because you're not going to be able to see it. Aha. Look at all these things. This is a different list from the same people, actually. Dr. Dean and Aisha Sherzai. In fact, I got this from a certificate that I got from Plantrician University. So all the slides with the green border are from that certificate that I just got recently. So here's another a list, age, but really, even Dr. Dean Sherzai said in that presentation, in that certificate presentation that I saw, he really said age really means cumulative bad habits. Basically, age means it's too many years of bad habits, honestly. That's really what it means, okay? But it is maybe a family history of early dementia. There could be some genetic component. Same with the ApoE4 gene, but I want to show you something important about genetics, okay, in a minute. But lack of exercise, unhealthy diet, low education, social isolation, menopause. So there's a few things here that they have discovered more recently that can also affect people. Menopause, alcohol, smoking, hearing loss, cardiometabolic health. So these are the things that we just mentioned, right? The LDL cholesterol, sugar levels, diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity. But regarding the genes, you guys, don't blame genetics because look at what happens. So the genetic risk you see elevates your the risk 60% of getting Alzheimer's disease. If you have your genetic risk plus the unhealthy lifestyle, look at that. Are you looking? 360% higher risk. So the unhealthy lifestyle is much more. It's actually the 300%, right? Because the risk alone, the genetic risk alone was 60. So now you add the unhealthy lifestyle and it's 360. But look at what happens when you add a healthy lifestyle right here, the rate of that. Do you see what's happening here? It goes down 30% less. So you know what the conclusion is by looking at this data? Adherence to a healthy lifestyle can do what now? Are you looking? Adherence to a healthy lifestyle can offset the genetic risk because it goes even lower than the 60%, the original 60%. So unhealthy lifestyle adds 300% to the 60% original from just genetic. But the healthy lifestyle goes down 30% even lower than the original. Wow. That's just awesome. I think it's awesome. I don't know what you think, but I think it's awesome. All right. So look at this study. Let me take myself out of here so you can read the whole thing. Okay, so this is from the Adventist Health Study. And the name of the paper is The Incidence of Dementia and Intake of Animal Products, Preliminary Findings from the Adventist Health Study. And so this was from 1993, so it's been around for a while. We've known this for a while. The incidence of dementia, all right, they found in a group of over 3,000 individuals that those who ate meat, including those who ate only white meats, meaning poultry and fish, had What? What does it say? Twice the risk of developing dementia compared to vegetarians. Twice. Twice, you guys. Twice the risk. Even if you only had healthy, only fish and chicken. And by the way, if you want to see what the study's right here. This is what the study looks like. And here is where it says that right there. Right there. See, it's highlighted for you. It says more than twice likely to become demented as their vegetarian counterparts, those who ate meat, including poultry and fish. There it is. Now, I want to show you something super interesting. Look at this. What you're looking at here is, see, on the left over there says cholesterol, right? So this graph, and the x-axis is, the y-axis is cholesterol, right? All the way on the left. And over here, the bottom part says ND, meaning no Alzheimer's disease. And the black bar over here on the right, Alzheimer's disease. AD, meaning Alzheimer's disease, is the black. All right? And the white is no Alzheimer's disease, no disease. And do you notice how much taller the black bar is compared to the white bar over there? Meaning the people who had Alzheimer's disease in general, or at least this study, had way higher levels of what again? Cholesterol. Way higher levels of cholesterol. Yes, yes. So look at this. I'm going to show you the study. It says midlife serum cholesterol increased risk of Alzheimer's and vascular dementia 3 decades later. This was Kaiser Permanente in Northern California. So, oops, sorry about that. There's a zero missing right here. It's supposed to be 9,000, not 9,00, right? It's 9,000 patients, individuals with high cholesterol. So the study was 9,000 patients, and they found that individuals with high cholesterol during midlife, so you're like 40-ish, 50-ish, had 57% higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease later on. So you're like, oh, I'm too young to worry about Alzheimer's disease right now. Who cares? That happens in just people with 70s, 80s. I don't have to worry about that right now. Really? Do you want to have 57% high risk? Because you have to worry about that right now. Even borderline high cholesterol. What's borderline? Like 200. That's literally borderline. If your total cholesterol is 200, that's borderline. If your LDL cholesterol is 100, that's borderline. But if you have diabetes or high blood pressure or some other metabolic condition, like, I don't know, do you have fatty liver or something? Then your LDL should be 70. If your LDL is 70, that's borderline. If you have those numbers, you have already 23% higher risk for Alzheimer's disease later, 3 decades later. You should worry about that right now. So if the Alzheimer's is going to happen in your 70s, are you 40? You should worry about that now. By the way, let me show you something super interesting. Look at these. These are arteries. Look at the top, A compared to B. B is the bottom, A is the top, B is the bottom. Do you notice a difference between the top and the bottom? Do you notice any difference? A, B. A and B. Ugh. What do you notice here? What do you notice? These are like what? Much more. Especially like the one right in the middle. I don't know if you can see the one right in the middle that has a tiny little hole left. Oh, wait. The one in the corner right here of the picture B, right here in the corner. Let me see. No, I can't put I don't know how to do this, you guys. Oh, wait, maybe I could do this. But the one straight B, top right of the picture B, totally clogged. Do you see it? Totally clogged. And look at A, much nicer, right? Guess which one is the picture of people who had Alzheimer's disease? Which one of the two, A or B? A or B? I think you already guessed. If you guessed B, you were correct. B is patients with Alzheimer's. Brain arteries. Do you want your brain arteries to be like this? Also, if their brain arteries look like this, what do their heart arteries look like? My goodness. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. All right, let's move on. Dietary fat types and 4-year cognitive change in community-dwelling older women. This was the Women's Health Study. All right, findings. First of all, it was nearly 6,000 women followed over 4 years. What did they find? Right here. Higher saturated fat intake was associated with poor trajectory of cognition. Specifically, 70% faster decline in memory. Where's saturated fat again? Where's the saturated fat? Number one source of saturated fat is animal products, animal foods, red meats. That's number one. Well, actually, even more than red meat is cheese, because when they make the cheese, they concentrate the fat. Remember that? Concentrated. They used to throw away the whey. Now they sell it to you. They used to throw it away. Now they sell it to you for premium price so that you can go to the gym and use that whey. But it's animal protein that when we talked about cancer, well, okay, go back to the cancer. I'm not going to talk about that right now. You can watch it later. But the cheese is concentrated in fat, you guys. The red meat is super high in saturated fat, but the chicken is not free of saturated fat for sure. You can check. You can just Google it. Dairy products like whole milk. Now, are there any vegetable fats that have saturated fat? For the most part, vegetable fats are low in saturated fat with 2 exceptions. There's 2, mostly, for the most part, there's 2 that are tropical oils that are high in saturated fat. 2 exceptions. All the other oils are lower in saturated fat, but there's 2 that are high and they're tropical. Coconut oil and palm oil. And so there is a podcaster that I follow, kind of, and he's been a vegan for a long, long time. And when he got his biometrics tested, after years of being a vegan, his cholesterol was high. And it's because he was eating coconut yogurt for a while. Now, he had a genetic tendency for high cholesterol, but after even, being a vegan for a while, his cholesterol was higher because he was eating coconut yogurt every day. So he stopped eating the coconut yogurt. Boom, cholesterol went down. So people who are maybe have a genetic predisposition to high cholesterol should stay away from certain coconut products, possibly. But coconut oil, I would say everybody should stay away from. It's very high in saturated fat. In fact, it has twice the amount of saturated fat than lard, percentage-wise. I'm just telling you. It's great for the skin, but coconut itself has the fiber. Coconut oil is a processed food without its fiber. It's not the original, thing that God made anymore. It's not the original coconut, right? It's a processed food without its natural fiber anymore. So I would say if you're going to eat any coconut product, it should be with its fiber and be moderate. All right. Bottom thing over here, women with the lowest, watch, this is right here. I'm not saying it. It's in the study. Women with the lowest saturated fat intake had the brain function of women. Are you reading? 6 years younger. Wow. See why it's better not to eat high saturated fat? I mean, you can eat coconut oil if you want, okay? But if you stay away from all that saturated fat, your brain function can be that of a woman 6 years younger. I'm just saying that this study was done with women's health study. It's the same for men. It's the same. Now, there's all these people online nowadays saying, no. Your brain needs fat. Your brain needs cholesterol. Your brain needs all the la. And the best diet for the brain is the keto diet. Carnivore diet's even better because all your fat, your brain needs the fat. Guys, your brain makes its own cholesterol, okay? The cholesterol you eat is not going to go to the brain. It's not going to cross the blood-brain barrier, you guys. It's not going to happen. Your brain makes its own cholesterol. So, watch. So that you can see. Keto. The first human randomized controlled trial on the ketogenic diet in patients with Alzheimer's disease. 21 patients for 12 weeks compared with those with the usual diet supplemented with low-fat, healthy eating guidelines did not show any statistically significant improvement in cognitive scores. The keto diet does not help. It's not going to make your brain any better. All these people talking about you need the keto diet for your brain. No. Don't listen to that. Also, unfortunately, all these years of research for drugs for Alzheimer's have mostly failed. This is from Dr. Dean Hirsi, and Haisha Hirsi. Drugs have failed. 99.6% of 413 trials testing a total of 244 compounds from 2002 to 2012 failed to produce a drug that helps Alzheimer's disease. How sad. How sad. I showed you, I think this next, I showed you this slide when we did the diabetes. I think I did. But look at this. I'm pretty sure I did. But it says Alzheimer's disease is type what? Do you see this? Type what, you guys? Type. Have you ever heard of type 3 diabetes? Have you ever? I think most people have never heard of this. If you have, it's because you are very in tune with health issues, health info. Type 3 diabetes. What? They're saying over here, type 2 diabetes causes brain insulin resistance. Brain insulin resistance. The same thing that happens in the body that causes diabetes happens in the brain. We conclude that the term type 3 diabetes accurately reflects the fact that Alzheimer's disease represents a form of diabetes. It's right there. That selectively involves the brain and has molecular and biochemical features that overlap with both type 1 diabetes mellitus and type 2 diabetes mellitus. Wow. 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 Whew. Protect your brain, you guys. Here it is. Here's how you do it. Protective factors. Just like that other circle. Okay, I'm going to expand it so you can see it better. You see the outer rim of this circle is the habits. And those habits lead to those things in the big arrows are the major things that will protect the brain. Okay? But the habits are the things you can do. So top, let's look at the top. It says regular what? Regular what? Exercise. Regular exercise. Move around. Okay, move around. Standing. Oh, by the way, did you know that sitting for 8 hours is just as bad as smoking? If you have a job that requires sitting, get up every hour, 5 minutes, walk around. Sitting for 8 hours straight is just as bad as smoking. Okay, number 2 says meditation, stress management. I would say meditate on the Bible, you guys. Don't use that other new age stuff. Meditation in God's word. Stress management, trusting God. 3, continual learning, as in study your Bible. Sabbath school, continual learning. Okay, next, purpose-driven activities. Purpose, have a purpose. Mission-driven, purpose-driven. See, the church supplies all of these things, right? Next, social engagement, volunteering. Mission, church, social engagement. Church supplies just about all of these things on the right-hand side. Okay, next, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Ay, that touches close. I'm guilty. Sometimes I don't get that. But it's so important. It's so important for the brain. Did I tell you about I think I did. Did I tell you last time about the glymphatic? Yes, I did, didn't I? See, I'm not getting enough sleep because I'm forgetting already. Okay, the glymphatic system, that flushing out of toxins from the brain, happens only at night. You got to clean your brain from that waste product that is produced during the day. It's not that it's a bad thing. It's normal waste product that's produced because you're using your brain. So at night, they get flushed out. But if you're not sleeping, it's not going to happen. Got to sleep. All right, next. Plant-based diet. See, there it is. God's diet. Genesis 1:29. Plants. But see, that's very important. The kind of fat you need for your brain, not the saturated fat in chicken and red meat. What kind of fat? Not the inflammatory fats. Saturated fats are inflammatory. What kind of fat are anti-inflammatory? Omega 3. Where's that found? Are you eating your chia and your flax every day? Are you? If you're not eating your chia or flax every day, you are not getting enough omega-3 fatty acids. I can tell you that right now. Or hemp. You can eat hemp. Walnuts, soybeans, greens, those are also good sources, but they're not as concentrated as chia and flax. You got to eat at least 1 to 2 tablespoons every day. The other sources is to get DHA, EPA, I would say vegan source, algae oil, DHA or EPA supplements. If you're not doing that, you're not getting your omega-3. That's it. I'm just telling you, you're not going to get it. Because our diets are too heavy in omega-6. Way too heavy. Now, omega-3 and omega-6 are both essential fatty acids. You need them. Essential meaning you need them. But our diet is too heavy in omega-6. The ratio is about 20 to 1. It should be 4 to 1. And we're doing about 20 to 1. And when you're consuming oil, by the way, you're probably not going to be converting the short chain omega-3 to long chain omega-3 fatty acids. And you need to convert those. The long chain omega-3 fatty acids are the EPA and DHA. You actually need to make that conversion. So if you eat chia and flax, those are short chain fatty acids. Your body needs to convert them to long chain omega-3 fatty acids. But if you're eating too much oil, that conversion is not going to happen. That's why it's important to leave the oils out as much as possible. So that when you eat the flax and you eat the chia, those fatty acids can be converted to long chain. I'm just saying, okay? That's why it's important to try not to eat too much oil, as little as possible. All right, last thing is the daylight exposure. How important it is to get enough daylight exposure. Now, obviously not the 2 hours, but your 15 minutes, 20 minutes, daylight exposure. It's extremely important for the brain. And if you can do that in the morning, as soon as the sun comes out, that's the best. Get out, look at the sun, 10, 15 minutes. You're resetting your body clock, your circadian rhythm. You're going to make your melatonin be produced 16 hours later. I mean, there's so much science behind this. It's amazing. I don't have time to go over it, but it's amazing, amazing. Plus, the vitamin D, if you can get some skin exposure, it helps your immune system. I mean, it's just amazing. Okay, do it if you can. Obviously, in the winter, you can get your vitamin D supplement. All right, look, this is the book I was telling you, Dean and Aisha Sherzai. If you're really interested, if you have, a relative possibly that can be maybe already starting to have Alzheimer's, look. Okay, look at the top, all right? 90% of Alzheimer's cases can be prevented. 90%. This is a quote from the book. There is hope. There's a way to prevent cognitive decline, to slow its progression. That's why I'm saying, even if you have somebody in your family who's already been diagnosed, you can slow the progression and improve the quality of life for those who already have a diagnosis. You can improve their quality of life, slow the progression of the disease. How? Just things that I told you, things that I mentioned. Now, look at this graph. Look at this graph. Because the preclinical that you see right there, and the mild cognitive impairment, MCI, those are the years when you can intervene. The preclinical and the MCI, you can still intervene to slow the progression of the disease. And there are some signs you can possibly do tests that can detect preclinical dementia. And you can intervene and you can stop it, you can slow it down before it gets too late. You can start making those changes, change those lifestyle habits, improve the sleep, improve the nutrition, exercise. All those lifestyle habits can happen at the preclinical, even the mild cognitive impairment stage. You can halt the advancement of the disease by doing what again? The healthy lifestyle. Healthy lifestyle. And by the way, they've done in this study, what they have done is done the dementia risk score. And there's a diet that I'm going to show you called the MIND diet, which is all the way on the left. It says MIND diet, plants, plant fats, not animal fats, plant fats, low salt, low saturated fat, low animal products, minimal alcohol. At the exercise, minimizing alcohol, cognitive engagement, activities to improve the cognitive reserve, no smoking, obviously. All right, all these things, okay? And look at what happens with dementia risk. If you do 0 to 1, well, there's hardly any decrease in the dementia risk. But if you do 2 to 3 of those things, 30% lower risk. If you do 4 to 5 of those things, 60% of lower risk. So why not do more, right? Okay, so Dean and Aisha Hersai, the doctors, they in the book, they created their own neural plan. They call it the neural plan. And each letter stands for something. And for nutrition, which is probably, they say, the most important lifestyle factor for the overall brain health. Nutrition, the most important. Data on dietary intervention and dementia prevention revolves around a consistent pattern. The optimal diet for brain health is high in unprocessed whole plant foods that are rich in phytonutrients. Phyto means plants. Phytonutrients, fiber, omega-3, remember, chia and flax, hemp. Low in saturated fats, those are the ones in animals, and coconut and palm. Salt, lower the salt, you guys. Alcohol, no, zero, nada. And processed foods, get them out. Okay, número 2, exercise increases life expectancy, increases or boosts mood. We're going to talk about that in 2 weeks. Aerobics, strength training, okay, regular movement. Okay, I'm going to skip a little because you know about the good things. Unwind, so that's the U in neuro. Unwind means basically unwind and developing ways to alleviate bad stress. So it's basically de-stress, unwind, right? Optimizes overall health. Bad stress is the kind of activity, thought, or emotion that does not serve a purpose, does not have clear goals. That is the kind of stress that over time significantly damages the brain and is associated with greater cognitive decline. It is important to identify one's bad stress. So, in other words, there's bad stress, meaning there's also good stress. Good stress is good for you, right? So good stress meaning like if you go into school, you're stressed out, but maybe it's a good stress because it makes your brain better. All right, R of neuro is restore, meaning restorative sleep. Restorative sleep cleanses the brain. I was telling you about the flushing out, right? Cleanses the brain and is vital for brain health. Our brains are constantly working and gathering data, thus requiring 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Oh, I hope I get that tonight. Okay, restorative sleep per night. Deep sleep phases allow the brain to cleanse and organize thoughts and memories for better function. Deep sleep, you guys. People tell me, oh, coffee doesn't affect me. I can drink coffee and go to sleep. No problem. Coffee, even if you sleep afterwards, affects your deep sleep. FYI. Okay. The O of neuro means optimize. Your brain can grow at any age. We can optimize cognitive capacity by focusing on new activities that are driven by purpose. Putting good stress. Oh, see, I was telling you about good stress. Good stress on the brain challenges it constructively and keeps it active. Cognitive, social, and intellectual activity jointly with higher education and occupational attainment have been shown to decrease the risk of cognitive decline and dementia by increasing cognitive reserve. That is the capacity of brain to resist the effects of neurodegenerative damage. So, are you signed up for school, for the School of Evangelism or any classes? Are you? Grow your brain. Always be learning something. Be engaged in new things. You can even learn, on instruments, music, art, so many things. Of course, Sabbath school. All right. So next, let's talk about nutrition because they said it was the most important one. Nutrition for the brain. What is the best nutrition for the brain? Because food is the most important internal environment. Nutrients can protect the brain from oxidative stress. Remember, it's the waste. That's the oxidative stress. So the nutrients can protect it because that's they get rid of the free radicals. Also, the nutrients can reduce inflammation. Inflammation damages the cells of the brain and lead to brain dysfunction. And you need to focus on dietary patterns. See, people always tell me, what can I eat for this? What can I eat for that? What food? No, don't focus on the food. What superfood? What can I add to my bad diet to get rid of this disease? No, you got to change the diet. See, focus on the dietary patterns instead of superfoods or macronutrients. All right. So look at the evidence. Evidence from research. Analysis of the diet and other factors found that, look, after an average of 4.5 years, most people who adhere to the most closely to the MIND diet, I will show you what the MIND diet is, by the way, had a 53% reduced rate of Alzheimer's disease compared to those who did not follow the diet closely. The MIND diet, look at the MIND diet associated with reduced incidence of Alzheimer's disease. This was Rush University. And they found that strict adherence to the MIND diet, which promotes a plant-based diet, limits meats and dairy, resulted in 53% reduction of risk in Alzheimer's. Even moderate adherence to the diet was associated with 35% risk reduction. So you can say, oh, okay, I'll just do moderate adherence. No, because watch. Participants who showed high adherence to the diet had cognitive function equivalent to a person who was 7.5 years younger. 7.5 years younger. So do you want a brain that is 7.5 years younger? 7.5. What? How is that even possible? I want a brain that's 7.5 years younger. Look at this. More evidence. A similar study following the MIND diet was associated with substantial slowing of cognitive decline. Okay, so now you're like, well, give me that MIND diet already. You keep talking. Stop talking and give me the MIND diet. Okay, fine. Are you ready for the MIND diet? So here's a comparison of the MIND diet with the Mediterranean diet, because people talk about the Mediterranean diet. Okay, the MIND diet is the improved version, basically, of the Mediterranean diet, okay? Of course, the plant-based diet is even better. So if you do the whole food plant-based diet, is even better, you guys. But the MIND diet is an improvement from the Mediterranean diet. All right, so what's the MIND diet? 3 whole servings of whole grains a day, at least. at least one serving of leafy greens, so salad, all right, every day. Berries twice a week at least. But you know what? Some of the plant-based doctors say eat berries every day, but the Mind Diet says twice a week. I would say every day, but okay, twice a week is good enough, all right? Or better than none. 1 ounce of servings of nuts. See, that's where the good fats are, right there. 1 ounce serving. Do not eat the whole bag. How much is an ounce? An ounce is about a handful, right? So it's about this much. Not a whole cup, this much. Okay, here's another very extremely important one. The next one is the beans and legumes every day. That's one of the most important things you can do, because not only does it help for the mind, meaning the brain, but also for your diabetes, for your blood pressure, for your cholesterol. Why? Because of the fiber. It has the soluble fiber. The fiber will just grab that glucose, will grab that cholesterol, and take it out of your body. So beans and legumes every day. Next, of course, vegetables. So vegetables, berries, leafy greens, whole grains, nuts and seeds. I mean, come on, that's basically the whole food plant-based diets we've been talking about. For how long now? Forever, seems like. All right. So those are the things to increase. Next, what do you decrease or reduce? Fish down to once a week only. So from Mediterranean diet, which says like 2 or 3 times a week, the Mind Diet says no, less than that. Chicken, the Mediterranean says, I don't know, like every day or whatever. That in the Mind Diet says no, down to only 1 or twice a week at the most. Cheese, no more than once a week in this Mind Diet. Of course, it's better none. 0 is better. I'm just saying. All right. In this Mind Diet, the butter, out of here. Why? Because it's saturated. So they changed the butter, which is a saturated fat, for olive oil, which is a mono unsaturated fat. See, there's a switch there. Now, of course, I would say if you really want to lower your cholesterol, particularly your LDL cholesterol, faster, I've seen it with my own eyes. I told you at my work, don't even do any olive oil, or if you're going to do, at most do 1 teaspoon a day. Teaspoon at the most. And you'll see your LDL cholesterol drop super fast. And in the case of the Mediterranean diet, they do wine, as you probably know. But now we know that the safest amount of alcohol per day, do you know how much it is? Do you know? 0. Big fat 0. That's why doctors Dean and Aisha Sherzai say grape juice is better, because you get the nutrients from the grapes without the alcohol, which damages the brain. That's what they say. All right, so now you know. If you're going to take actually they do recommend the following supplements if you follow a whole food plant-based diet. In fact, actually they recommend vitamin B12 for anyone above the age of 40, because most people do not absorb vitamin B12 very well. People who take any antacids, people who have any problems, like gastritis or any problem with acidity in the stomach. People have all kinds of ulcers, all kinds of gastrointestinal problems nowadays. If you have any kinds of gastrointestinal problems, you're probably not absorbing vitamin B12 really well. So whether you eat meat or not, you should probably take vitamin B12 supplement. If you're going to take a vitamin B12 supplement, I recommend, as a nutritionist, probably get a sublingual, meaning you put it under the tongue. That way it doesn't go through the digestive process, doesn't have to go through the digestive system, which is where the problem is. You put it under the tongue, it goes through the tissues that are under the tongue directly to the blood circulation. And so it's directly absorbed better. Of course, the other way is to inject it. That's another way to absorb it, to not go through the digestive system. So that's one supplement that is highly recommended, not just for vegans, you guys. Everyone should really be on it. And it's a supplement that is easy to take. It's cheap. It's easy to find. Now, people say, well, that means the plant-based diet is not a natural diet if you have to take a supplement. Well, here's the thing. The B12 vitamin is not made by animals. It's not made by plants either. It's not made by animals. It's not made by plants. Then who makes it? It's made by microorganisms, bacteria. It just so happens that in the last, 100 years or so, more or less, we have cleaned up our environment nicely, thanks to public health initiatives. We have gotten rid of a lot of bad microorganisms, bacteria that cause diseases. So we drink clean water now. We have nice, sanitary conditions. Therefore, we get less sick. And unfortunately, we gotten rid of good and bad bacteria. Also, here's another thing that is not so good. We get our produce, for the most part, from industrialized agricultural processes that put way too many chemicals on the soil, that are pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, whatever, all this sides, and they kill just about every living thing on the soil. The soil is pretty much dead. If you go to I live in a very agricultural area. If you go to any fields out there and you touch the soil is not alive like it should be. Like if you actually have your own garden, and if you, do have live soil has bugs, has worms, right? It should, at least good soil should have worms, should have living things in it. But if you go out to the fields around here and you grab some soil, it's pretty much dirt. That is, doesn't have anything. It's almost sandy. It's sterile. It doesn't have life in it because of all the pesticides and all the chemicals that are applied on the soils. And so there's no bacteria in there. Good or bad, I guess. There's nothing. So where are you going to get your vitamin B12 anymore? It used to be in the environment back, when people lived in natural environments, right? But we don't live in that kind of environment anymore. We lived in a very industrialized environment. So we're not in touch with nature. We drink water that has chlorine. We live in, cleaner environment. We don't get cholera. So that's good. But we also don't have, we are not in touch with the environment that had the vitamin B12 all around. That's why we need to supply it now. So anyway, sorry about that little, extra thing, but I needed to explain why. So I digress. Back to vitamins. Vitamin D is obviously the vitamin from the sun. So if you can get it from the sun, it's better, okay? Because you get other benefits from the sun. You don't want to overdo the sun. You don't want you don't want to overdo the UV. Depending on your skin color, if your skin color is too light, you want to do less. If your skin color is darker, then you want to do a little bit more so you can absorb enough of sunlight to produce the vitamin D. So in the wintertime, though, especially if you live in high latitudes, you might need to take a supplement in order to get the vitamin D. Omega-3 fatty acids, we already talked about. You might need to get a supplement if you're not getting enough of the DHA and EPA, especially the DHA, So you might need to take an algae base. That's where the fish get it from, by the way. That's the original source that the fish get it from. So you're like, oh, Diana, you need to get it from the fish. Well, fish get it from algae. So that's the original source. So you can get an algae-based omega-3 fatty acid supplement. And at the end, it says, for other micronutrients such as vitamin C, E, and minerals, it's best to get them from food rather than supplements. So the three above that I mentioned, supplements are fine if you can't get them from the natural sources. But the other ones, you could get them. You could. Zinc, selenium, calcium, all the other ones. You can absolutely, iron, you can get them from food. You can. Yes, you can. All the amino acids, by the way, you can get all the protein you need. You do not need protein from animal sources. Don't let anyone tell you that you need protein from animals. All the essential amino acids are in plants, every single one of them. You have the zinc, you have iron, you have calcium, you have all the other minerals. Every single one. So do not let anyone tell you otherwise. All right, so let's finish up. So best diet for the brain. There it is. Same thing we've been saying forever. Unprocessed, plant-based diet. In other words, whole food, plant-based. Fats, not the saturated. What kind? Monounsaturated, which would be your olive oil or your avocado, which is better to get it from the Whole Foods, right? Your avocado. So the mono or polyunsaturated, that would be your omega-3 and omega-6. Polyunsaturated derived from plants. And if you get the whole plant, it has the fiber. So if you get the nuts, the seeds, and the avocado, they have the fiber. That's the best. Plant proteins derived from lentils, beans, soy. That's best. Include complex carbohydrates. So not cookies, not sugar, not soda, nope, not white bread, hopefully not white rice either. Complex carbohydrates, meaning your unprocessed whole grains. You could eat potatoes, you can eat sweet potatoes, you could eat corn on the cob, for instance. Those are carbohydrate sources too, but they're not processed. Those are the kind you want. You want to focus on increasing the fiber. Those are your whole foods. Those are the ones. The grains, the more intact they are, the better. So if you're going to eat oats, I'm just going to give you an example of oats. There's several kinds. So there's quick oats, rolled oats, steel cut, and then oat groats. You see the spectrum, right? The spectrum. Which one's the best? Oat groats. But it takes longer. You have to soak them overnight and then cook them in an instant pot or the regular pot, but it just takes longer. But that is the most intact. The next one is steel cut. It's not as intact, but it's great. The next one is rolled oats. It's less intact. It's not as bad. And then the least good, I guess, would be the quick oats. It still has the fiber. It's not a refined product, but it's the least intact. The fiber in it is been broken up more. So if you want to choose the most intact, it would be the oat groats. That's the best. All right. If using any oil amount, I would choose, if I were you, no more than 1 teaspoon a day. But if you have high lipids, I would really consider leaving out the oil for a while and try it. Just try it. See what you can do to your lipids. All right. If you're using any oil, best is extra virgin cold pressed olive oil. It's been found to be the best for health reasons. All right. I'm going to leave you with a verse. And it's found in Romans 12:2. And it says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." So the Bible is calling us to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Our mind and our brain is where our mind is. And if we can protect and take care of it, then we can have a clear mind so that we can better connect with our Father, our God, our Creator. So I want to, as always, leave you with my website, healthfortoday.net, because that's where you can find, as I've told you before, a 10-day plan. So it's healthfortoday.net, healthfortoday.net. And as I said, you can find right there, this is the website, and right up on top, there's a 10-day challenge. I call it a challenge because it's not easy necessarily to change your diet if you haven't changed it, right? And I also call it the Daniel challenge. So if you click right there where it says 10-day challenge, this will show up. And it says 10-day Daniel challenge. Because if you've never gone to Daniel, the book of the Bible, Old Testament, Daniel chapter 1, there is actually a story of young men who did a challenge in a way for 10 days. And in 10 days, you can see the difference. So in this PDF document, you can find 10 days, a menu. It's actually a shopping list. There's all kinds of things that I did. And recipes, whole food, plant-based. There's 3 meals because I recognize that a lot of people, haven't done the 2-meal regimen. But if you want to do 2 meals, you can also do that. So there's a guide to do that as well. So I invite you to try it. Whole food, plant-based, you may like it. And if you like it, wow, what if you actually like it? And if you feel good, you can keep going. And you can then glorify God in your body, because that is God's diet. That's the original diet. All right. So I hope this was helpful for you. And as I said before, our next presentation will be Nutrition and the Brain Part 2, which will be October 14th. It will also be pre-recorded. I wish it was live, but I will be doing classes. So it will be pre-recorded, but it will be on depression and anxiety. By the way, I've done this presentation for NAMI, which is an organization that is nationwide, and have asked me to do this presentation many times. It's so important to take care of our brain to prevent these mental disorders as much as possible. So I think it's important. I think it's really, really important. Nutrition is connected with our mental health. So I really invite you to connect that day and let your friends know. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and do all those things, especially with the Living Manna online church channel, so that we can let other people know about the contents of this channel and the channel can grow. All right, so let's finish with prayer. And thank you again for connecting. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting True Health Tuesday. I hope you're sharing the content of True Health Tuesday so other people can know that God is so wonderful. He's given us this wonderful message that we can heal, we can have better health, or we can live a life and live it abundantly. All right. So let other people know about that. So thank you again. And let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much again for this opportunity to do these wonderful meetings, these True Health Tuesday presentations. And we ask you that you let this content go around, let other people know that you are our wonderful creator, that you have created our bodies in such a wonderful way that it can heal itself. And yes, we ask you to bless this church, Living Manna Online Church, and all the content of the programs that are done, and everyone who's connected tonight and every night that we have programs. We ask you to bless everyone who is connected and all the leadership of this church and church. And Lord, be with everyone that is maybe sick, who has health challenges. We ask you to put your healing hands over them and help them to feel better, to apply anything that they need to do possibly so that they can heal as well. And we ask you all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. Thank you once again. May God bless you. And see you soon. See you for the next program. God bless you and good night. Thank you.